Welcome to Inside the Firm, a podcast dedicated to small business owners and hosted by entrepreneurs, Alex Gore and Lance Cayko. Each week, they take you on their journey of how to start, run, and grow a business by bringing you inside their architecture and real estate development firm. Get a behind-the-scenes tour of how these business leaders manage their clients and foster company culture while creating new and innovative projects. And now your hosts, Alex Gore and Lance Cayko.
Welcome to another episode of Inside the Firm. I'm Alexander Keith Gore. I'm here with Lance Michael Cayko. We are back from vacation. Happy to be back. Happy to be talking to you. Welcome.
I'm glad. Yeah, it's been like 3 weeks, I think, since we've been talking to everybody. So I hope everybody is well rested. We are in the middle of the summer, and numbers are up. Appreciate all the listeners.
Yep. And if you ever get sad that you miss us, there's one way that you can cure that.
How?
You can even cure it for free.
Really?
It's called RevitRocketship.com. Takes your Revit game to the next level, basically to the moon. That's why it's called Revit Rocket Ship. It accelerates how you learn and how you are productive at Revit. Not only does it teach you from the family side to the project side, it gives you our template and shows you how to kick off a project. Even if you've done Revit before, especially for residential, this is a new way of thinking. It's modeling like you get built. It has everything behind it, and it has our voices. So you won't be lonely anymore. And if you don't like it, free money back guaranteed for 1 month. We would never leave you for that long. So that can bridge any gap that you need. RevitRocketship.com.
Absolutely, absolutely. You could also check out all of the wonderful podcast episodes that we did with in the ARCAT booth at Las Vegas. So speaking of ARCAT, with project conditions changing and limited time to get things done, it's good to have information at your fingertips. ARCAT.com provides architects, engineers, spec writers, and contractors with the most comprehensive libraries of building product content and design so you can access it quickly and efficiently. Even better, ARCAT.com is free to use and requires no registration. So visit today and access the information you need now. That's ARCAT.com. Check them out. Support them because they support us. Last but certainly not least, and I'm wearing it, I've got my Pella Luxury polo on today. Pella Luxury, you've never experienced a brand like this before. This collection of brands within the luxury division of Pella are the conversation starters, the pioneers of industry who provide window and door solutions to discerning architects, the building industry, and beyond. They have decades of experience creating things no one else in the world is creating, and the collection of brands are brought together to complement and build on one another. They don't push beyond the limits. They set them. Explore PellaLuxury.com/thefirm today. That's PellaLuxury.com/thefirm. today.
Lance, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you were an Oracle, if anyone ever called you Lance Oracle Cayko.
Yeah, that's my middle name.
Yeah. What is the recession really going to look
so
like?
You didn't even know I was going to talk about this, but here's what I think.
I'm an Oracle. I did.
He's oracling the Oracle.
Yeah.
This is
Inception.
It is. Wow. And we're living it.
Yeah.
So I just came to this conclusion this week. As I think about the economy a lot, I hope you guys do too, especially if you're business owners and entrepreneurs. Because you have to, right? I mean, it's everything. And my conclusion is this. The way, and it's based on, just my kind of thought process or whatever, but like there are some empirical pieces of data we can talk about. So the Fed raised interest rates last month, right?
Yeah.
Full point.
Okay.
Full point. Wasn't it?
No, 7.5.
It was only 7.5? Oh, they
7.5.
might do a full point this time. But either way, they did 7.5. Are you sure?
Yes, because I was right.
Okay. Al was right. He was predicting it. I was predicting what?
You thought
a half a point?
Someone thought a point, someone thought a half point. I said 0.75.
That's what it was. It was me at the half point. Somebody said a full point, and then I was in the middle. Yeah. Be interested to see what he thinks they're going to do this next week.
0.75.
All right, 0.75.
Stay the course.
Here. Yeah, I think it's going to be a full point. But the point with the points is, this is one of the data points here, is that they raised it a point, or 3/4 of a point. If you've been a listener of this show, maybe you're a new listener, the idea with this gamed economy that they run with the Federal Reserve is that they can control what happens to the inflation. So when they raise...
Even though they don't know it. Even though it hits them for a surprise. Even though it's like, hey, we printed all this money. What happened? Oh, what?
Shocking.
Shocking. Even though they have the levers, it still shocked them. Which I think, sorry to be interrupting Al.
It's all right.
I think they're lying to us in this reason.
Oh, okay.
Because very, very smart people said the way to get control of the debt is to inflate your way out of it.
Yeah.
And there was multiple talks, not only like through the tech community, but on CNBC, NBC, all these things. So I think they were doing that and just, I don't know what else to say, but lying to us.
Yeah.
One, if they would have said like, hey, the only way we're going to get out of debt is we have to do this. Everyone brace, this is going to happen. We predict 8% for the next year. Get ahead of it.
Yeah.
But no, they didn't do it that way.
They
because
didn't
we
do
can't
it.
handle it. You can't handle it.
I can't handle it.
You can't even handle a mustache.
I can't. I know. It's shaved off. Are you guys watching this? YouTube?
Yeah.
There's no goatee. There's no mustache. There was a mustache. If you go to Fishing with Lance, you'll see the mustache. So they raised it 0.75 of a point last month, June 2022. Inflation at that point, year over year, when it came out, was under 9%. The idea with them raising the rate was that it should tamp down the inflation. Well, the numbers with inflation just came out. They're at 9.1%. Al the Oracle is saying that they're going to raise it at least 0.75 of a point. There's no indications anywhere, anything you read that says they're not going to raise it at some percentage. I'm saying it's going to be a full point. So if they raise the rates and they didn't tamp down inflation, and inflation kept going, and the supply chains aren't really getting that much better, and then you're starting to see civil unrest in places like Sri Lanka, Uganda. There's still Ukraine and Russia, and they're doing their thing. There's energy problems all over the place. You're seeing the headlines about Texas, California, shut down, turn off your AC, otherwise, you're going to kill the power grid and all these things, right? What I think so what this is telling me, but at the same time, you see help wanted signs everywhere. Mm-hmm. People are leaving places for different places to work. Employment, and we'll get into that later. The private sector's bounced back over 100%. So since the pandemic, and with employment, meaning like all the jobs came back plus more in the private sector. Public sector is way down. We'll talk about that, but. Here's what I'm getting at is what this recession is actually going to look like is it's not going to be like the last one.
Okay.
Even though history repeats itself, it's not going to be the last one, like the last one. The last one, we had very high unemployment, especially in the architecture, building, construction, engineering industry. We had very high unemployment. Unemployment numbers of like in our sector, specifically architecture, was up to 50% in some regions. Like half the architects lost their jobs, type of thing. It was insane.
Massive. Yep.
So what it's going to be like in this one is, I think we're going to keep most of the jobs. I think we're actually going to keep most of the jobs. But, so we're not going to have this big unemployment problem.
Yeah.
We're going to have an inflation problem. So we're going to it's going to be a recession with high inflation. Like it'll be a recession on paper. And even the Atlanta Fed is predicting now, they're saying that like this quarter we're in right now, Q2 is going to be, we're going to see a decline of like, it's going to be negative, some negative, like 1% to 2% negative. That would then be the textbook definition of a recession, back-to-back quarters, 2 declines in GDP, and you're in a recession.
Okay.
So on paper, it's that way. But I think you're still going to have your job. It's just we are going to deal with high inflation for like a decade. There's no way you can print that much money and not suffer the consequences.
Okay.
Thoughts?
Good point. I don't think we're going to deal with it for decades on paper because next year it's going to all go to a wash because it's year over year monthly inflation averages.
Oh, this is Al's great point. Yeah.
So it's 8% this
down.
year, 8% last month. And then a year from now, they'll say, oh, look, it's only 2%. We solved it. Yeah, but things are still 8% higher than they were before. Like it got 8 and up in that. So you just reduced the baseline to last year.
Bingo.
But your point is
still consistent.
Still
exactly.
consistent.
Exactly.
Yep. Here's my question to you. This is what I see is that there's still that money out. Like they're not getting rid of that money. They're just trying to lower the amount of new money that comes in. So there's still money to go around, still things that need to be done. But here's what I see is like all of a sudden, like you cancel Netflix, you stop going to the coffee shop. Let's just use those two examples. Maybe you eat out less, right? You just start to bring your house in order, right? We've done this with F9 too, right? Get rid of some subscriptions you don't need. Okay, now the subscription, whatever tech lost some. Coffee shops lost
Consumer spending is going to constrict, yes.
Yep, and then McDonald's and fast foods and restaurants lost some. Don't they have to lay off?
Yeah.
So what I think it's going to be is there will be somewhat of a layoff. It's not going to be like 2008, like you said. And I almost think they're going to say it's not a recession. Even though technically you and me have less stuff. We have less coffee, less restaurants, less
everything's still more expensive.
Yep. Some people lost their jobs technically into a recession. But since there's so much money, we didn't lose GDP numbers. Not a recession. Biden did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I think. It's literally quite on the same lines. It's just slightly tweaked.
And a little, the depth of the thoughts are a little bit deeper because the perspective is wider. How about that? Like the perspective is wider because Al talked about, well, yeah, they're just like, let's say inflation is actually 10% this time next year.
It's only going to be seen as 2.
It's only going to be seen as 2 when you compare the two numbers.
Yeah.
Which is 100% true. Yep. So, anyway, so what does that mean for your firm? What does that mean for you? I think you have to. I think the bottom line, if there is one lesson about this, is if you have the ability. So, here's what we're seeing in the Colorado market is right now. I've met with multiple developers and owners over the past about a week since I've been here, I guess, back. And they're all telling me the same thing. Every architect we talk to is booked out till October or November, and they won't even look at our project. They won't even entertain it. If you are in our position and you've built a nimble firm and you've delegated responsibility throughout your staff, thus freeing up the salesmen, Al and Lance, and you can make it, and then you still have freed yourself up enough to where, like, you can reassure these developers and owners and everybody that if you sign with us, we can start within a week, 2 weeks. Even if it's me or Al touching the project to get it in motion, get it in the mix. If you can do that, that's part A. And part B is only try raise your fees and be comfortable with only getting 40% of what you're going after.
Yep,
that's the key here.
A, B, lesson C is this is a reminder to always run a tight ship.
Bingo.
Always run a tight ship. If it's not tight, if it's not clean, there's some holes.
Loops.
If there's some water leaking in, go ahead, patch those holes, clean the ship up, and just try to maintain that.
Yep. Okay. There's a subject that I just had to talk. It's just been burning in my brain since we've been at the AIA. This perspective of architects about, like, why should architects be the ones leading the charge for climate change and stuff like that when 95% of the problem is India and China. So I just wanted to touch base with you on that one. Like where does this attitude come from? I'm not suggesting we shouldn't be part of the solution, but this idea that, like, why is it just architects? And, like, where is this? Like, what if that thought process was focused? This came up in the ArcCast, basically, from one of the folks who was there ArcCasting with us, and I was like, where does this it was almost too much of an ego thing for me to take. I was like why is there this inflated idea of the architect is like, it's got to be the architect doing it? Like, why?
So I have a worse thing that I think is more egregious, and then an answer to your question.
Okay.
What I think is more egregious than that is all the AIA advertising about architects and planning. Their literal advertisements that come into my Google Mail is like, we need to rethink cities. We need to replan this, replan that. I understand architects have a role, but there's a whole profession where you can get a planning degree, where you think about those things, and where you do that. And maybe they're trying to, the only thing I can get is they're trying to break into that segment more and say, oh, come to architects first. We'll hire planners out of college and we'll have architects do the pretty stuff, planners do all that. But that's where I think, like, man, your messaging is wrong because, like,
your focus is wrong.
You're literally talking about streets and stuff like that, a civil. So unless you're trying to, like, capture that market, that's where I think the head's too big. My answer to you would be, if I'm playing devil's advocate, or my real answer would be, I think the solution is in decentralized solution.
Yeah.
I think that homes and businesses should be more sustainable.
Which is the opposite of this idea that, like, it should come literally capital A down. Like that's a hierarchical, centralized solution versus what you're getting at.
Oh, instead of like lobbying and mandating, is that what you're saying? All I'm saying is like, hey, if someone designs me to do a sustainable house, like I'm talking power, water, food, like real sustainable security, like heat.
Yeah, but even the way you phrase the beginning of if someone hires me to do a sustainable house, not
I'm going to force it.
There you go. Someone hired me to do their house. I'm going to force them. I'm going to only suggest. I'm going to, like, it's my job to say, like, to literally make them feel like crap because they aren't doing all of these green things you need to do when it's like at the end of the day, let's say it's again back to the fire victims in Colorado. Can they afford to do solar panels? Probably not. I mean, these budgets are getting pushed to the limits no matter what, as is, just to rebuild.
Yeah. They're getting high. And then what a lot of people don't understand is that there's trade-offs. And it might be like, hey, we can make this more sustainable, and it's going to cost $20,000 to $40,000 more initially, or either through interest payments. If it costs $40,000 more in interest payments, it's going to cost you $80,000 more throughout the life of it. And you might be, even though we're not big advocates for this, like, no, I want to take that money for college. But their argument is no. This is going to save you money, right? This $40K investment is going to save you money. They'll be like, okay, wait, did you factor in how much you're going to pay when you actually pay through the mortgage? Because then it's 80. Now, is that true? And now, is that a wash? Or is it true? You know, like, there's more nuance to it is what you're thinking.
Exactly.
I don't mind, though, like, I think we can solve, and it's kind of selfish. It's kind of selfish. It's like, hey, you as a homeowner, if you can do this, if you have your other priorities already in check, like you want when the city goes out, you to stay on.
Yeah.
In every level, water,
exactly.
heat, cold, AC, everything. You know what I mean? My AC just went out. And then in my house, in my future house, whenever I do that, I'm not on a strict timeline because I love my neighborhood. Maybe I need to do some passive cooling with even like, maybe my extra water supply is down in the earth, and then that runs through a pipe that can circulate over the fan, so at least it can blow out 50-degree air. You know, because so it was hot.
Yeah,
and the kids were sick. It was terrible.
Yeah. Anyway, so and then back to my original point. Like 95% of the pollution problem is India and China. So what does that have to do with architecture in the United States? And the biggest polluter on the planet is the U.S. military. So what does that have to do with you being an architect and leading the charge there? Like, well, I know the voting habits of architects, and I know they just feed into the military-industrial complex by voting those kind of people back in. You tell me.
The military-industrial complex has both sides of the aisle.
Agreed. I'm just saying exactly. So like, let's say everybody at the AA was listening to this podcast and they go, "You're right, Lance. We're going to pull the different lever next year." I would like literally, we're pulling the left lever now. We heard you, Lance. We're going to pull the right lever. I would go, still not the right lever. Literally not the right lever. Like, same thing's going to happen. I mean, Trump had Michael Bolton in there.
Terrible.
So,
terrible person.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, just to be clear, what I'm advocating for. What's up, Sam? What do we got next, Al? Oh, I have something next. I'm going to read this to you. Ready?
Oh, please.
So this was posted 2 weeks ago on LinkedIn by Tyler Suomala. Quote, an architecture professor once shared their little secret during class. It helped them scale their small practice into one of the largest in the world, and it's dead simple. When pitching to clients, competing firms would bring all their principles, high-quality renderings, impressive slideshows. But the professor just themselves, a roll of trace paper, a pen. They led with the client, asked questions about their goals and vision, then quickly sketched ideas and solutions on the trace paper, and they kept winning contracts. Why? Quality beats quantity. Surprise. Reflecting the goals of the client is better than assuming them. Digital, i.e. renderings, is not always better than analog, i.e. hand sketches. Clients want to feel like participants in the process rather than observers. Always bring a pen and trace paper to every pitch. Smiley face.
Great point. Love the point. I would just add perspective to it.
Okay.
Probably stop being a professor if he grew it into one of the largest firms. And then 2, can you name it, or is this just a story that you made up? Because I want to know that it's real world, right?
Oh, like know the firm?
Yeah.
Like of course, yeah.
Because if honestly it's not real, then it's like, are you giving advice that's really not real? Because the perspective I was going to add is, let's say you're going after an airport. You could sketch out whatever, but if you're a 4-man team, they're going to say, yeah, we're going to spend $2.8 billion and you don't have a full staff full of projects that you've done before. Not going to happen. Great sketch. You nailed what we wanted to do. I'm going to take a picture of that.
The biggest lesson, I think, from that little story, whether it's true or not,
I still love the story,
is listen to your clients. So that, and we've talked about it before on this podcast, and I mean listen during the first meeting is, I tell every prospective client this when they say, so, okay, we scheduled a meeting. Is there anything we should prepare for? And I go, I tell you what, especially a house is an excellent example. I go, well, here's how it typically works is I am there to be a listener first. And so during the first half of the meeting, I would like you to walk me around your house, walk me around your property. Tell me about all of your ideas. I'll be taking careful notes. Eventually, you will run out of steam. You will run out of things to say. And then you'll have questions for me, and then I'm happy to answer those questions. Yeah. That's the way it should go. I do bring a notebook, sketchbook, moleskin. I do bring a pen. Every once in a while, I will do a sketch or two. But I'm definitely not doing floor plans like this professor was, if that's what he was doing, for free.
Yep, exactly. Well, on better news, I just want to bring this up because I do not want to be accused of only being one-sided. Wood prices have retreated back down.
They have. I'm seeing it on my end, 100%.
Which is great.
It's fantastic. Even materials are getting easier to get. As a matter of fact, we just built a deck. We had substitute materials originally ordered on site. We're able to take them back and get the original ones we wanted because they were now in the store.
Nice. So
good stuff is happening.
Good news there. Different or bad news, there's an article here, and you can see it if you're watching YouTube. Big Denver housing construction proposal slowed way down when a new affordable housing rule kicked in.
Then it says this was expected. It says that.
Well, by who?
Kyle Harris.
Yeah. No. Did the city expect it? Did the city?
I don't know.
Think about this. Did city council say, hey, once this kicks in, housing proposals, construction is going to slow way down, thus ruining competition, which ruins basically a fair price? Because if they did realize that and expect it, then you're the stupidest person on the planet.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go in deep on any of it, but we just heard from another contractor too. Like they're pulling out of Denver, and the reason why they're
developer.
Yep, developer. They're pulling out of Denver is because they can't predict any way of when they'll get these approvals, when things will work out. Like it's just a shit show to be honest.
Yeah.
So why I kind of put those in that order is everyone should be wary and be kind of active in this in your own way, in your own lane and jurisdiction and city is, hey, we can get wood prices. We can get materials. Like the capitalism part is working as long as there's clear competition, not cronyism. We don't like that. And you are the problem. Like you are the problem.
Yeah.
And you should know that.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Well, good luck to you, Denver. Good luck for you. And some more further good luck. So Axios is a wonderful publication, and I've got an article pulled up here on my end. And here's why it's good luck to Denver and jurisdictions that are that are basically having trouble keeping up with approvals, right? And approving things. So Axios, a couple days ago, July 11th here, the government is having a hard time hiring. Shocker. Percentage of jobs lost at the start of the pandemic now recovered by sector. So this is kind of tying back into, this is why I think, private sector or the economy. Here's the economy we're going to run into, and it's going to be a high inflationary, low unemployment rate. It's kind of an interesting. It's kind of sort of the part of what we had last time, but not so much. We didn't even have it last time. That's why it's totally different. We didn't have high inflation during
the crash,
2008 or anything. Everything went down. Real estate deflated, actually, right?
Yeah.
Even in Boulder, went down 1%. So the private sector, this little chart you can see, we're now at 100.7% recovery, meaning now there's even more jobs than there was before that are filled. Nice. When everything crashed and they shut everything down. But the government jobs have only recovered at a 54.6% rate. So what does that translate to, right? That translates to staff on planning departments, building departments. There's less of them. We're building like crazy. The approval time now in Denver just went down to in their department. We just got the little thing from their little email from them. 0%. It went to for
hitting their timelines.
For hitting their projected timelines, they are hitting them then at a 0% rate. And then you couple that with this problem with the government being able to retain employees and get employees. There you have it. It's like kind of a bad storm.
Want to know my theory of why that's 54.6%?
I do.
Every firm should have a good hiring practice, meaning like, here's what you need, here's how you vet, blah, blah, blah. I bet you the only reason that they're at 54% is their own bureaucracy.
Right.
Meaning, like I've seen...
Oh, like the hiring method. Oh, God.
So think about this. You've applied for jobs, right? You send a resume, a cover letter, set it up an interview, blah, blah, blah. Or they say, no, thank you, right? I know for a fact, government jobs, you upload a resume. That goes into a thing that breaks apart all of your stuff. Then you have to fix where all the computer went wrong. Then you have to upload and answer all these, like, it's nonsense. And then they probably have to wait, and there's, for good reasons, 6 months. We got to collect everything. Then we have to have meetings about who we're going to hire and what, like, they're doing this to themselves. It's just, however efficient you are in reviewing and approving drawings, I know we're just picking on the planning department, that's how efficient you are at hiring new staff. You're terrible at it. Terrible.
Okay. Last thing before we hopefully hear from our bestie down in Florida. Quick little anecdotal thing I just wanted to bring up. Kind of wrap up the whole conversation because it all started with money and economy and business and all of that, right? So up on the screen here, I've got this guy posted publicly. I don't even know how I found him. I don't even think I'm linked into this guy. Yeah, I'm not. Oh, we do have a shared connection. Let me see here. Are we connected? We are not connected. Anyway, somebody else through the architecture community, because this guy, his name is Jake.
32 mutual connections.
Yeah, Jake. Yeah, exactly. That's how. Jake Rudin, out of architecture, he says, and Adidas Innovation. That's who this guy is. So he posted 5 days ago, salary week 1 of 7, talking about money with others is eye-opening, right? So he says you can see on the screen, you can read it yourself, you can go to the link. He's talking about money. And I just was curious. I just asked, hey, how many of these conversations that you have are related to how money is created, who creates it, and what are the consequences of who creates it? And then he responded and said, I would love to know more about the context of your question. I've had, at this point, thousands of conversations with architects, ranging from firm owners to interns to principals and executives. I run a business, work for an enormous company, have a lot of discussions about money, blah, 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 blah. So then I said, I'm asking and then he asked, at the end of that, curious to see if your question is more the moral or ethical bounds of economics or related to some hidden implication about why people don't discuss pay. This does tie into pay, right? And I'll get to that. Jake, so then I replied, I said, I'm asking in the context of your post. The post is about money. I'll ask again, how many of these conversations that you have are related to how money is created, who creates it, and what are the consequences of who creates it? And he said a lot, specifically 42. I have no idea if he actually wrote it down. That's hilarious. Yeah. Surprisingly, though, I find the majority of conversations about market share, the creation of wealth, and the consequences thereof are more then often not with people who have either left architecture to work in or build another business, or who are interested in this topic for their own ethics, political interests. Hence my question about the context. And I go, that's great. I'd like to be the 43rd. Here we are. Who, in your opinion, creates money, and what are the consequences of this specific entity creating it? Then he just reacted. So,
because you wanted to get in a discussion about the Fed.
Absolutely. Like, if you're not talking about this guy and everything that he's been saying since he was in Congress, Mr. Ron Paul, like, so there was this tweet he put out, Mr. Ron Paul, and that said, in 1913, the year that led to today's economic torture. Right now, we're in it. Economic torture, right? Yeah. Both the income tax and the Federal Reserve were created that year. The income tax made everyone's earnings the property of their government first. What the government allows people to keep is then relentlessly stolen by the Fed's inflation. So that completely 100% relates back to your salary. So like when you're negotiating your salary, and I have had discussions with several of our friends who we went to school with, and they were asking me, they're like, hey, can I ask you just as the boss? They're not like owners or anything. Like, how would you approach this? Like, is it fair to bring up
inflation?
And that what is the real rate of inflation? Like, can you be giving? Is it appropriate for there? He goes, for instance, one of them said, I know they're going to try to give me 3%.
The Mayo Clinic did it. The Mayo Clinic is one of the best hospitals in the world. Like, everyone knows that, right? And they gave all their employees 3%. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
Inflation is 8%.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
So, Jake, if you are only talking to 42% out of, you said thousands, let's just do a short version here. 42 divided by 2,000. That's 2% of the people you're talking with. Shouldn't the majority of your discussions be revolving around that entity, who creates it, what the result is then, and then what that leads to with negotiation tactics for your pay and salary, or even what you're charging as a business owner?
Scroll up, please.
Yeah, scrolling up now.
Sorry to his.
Al's reading.
About money.
So.
Salary negotiation tips. Let's see where it
See?
goes.
See?
Yeah.
I'm tired.
I think it has to do with your ADD and then his, because you just repeat the same question, but without adjusting it.
Sure.
Without saying, I'm talking about the Fed.
Right.
Do you not want to talk about the Fed?
Yeah. Why? Why should that be taboo when it controls everything? I'm just saying. It seems like, it's a taboo subject. Why?
Yeah, because it's gravity.
Ah, there you go. Yeah, and we live in the age of their gravity isn't even real, right?
Well, I think people think, but maybe this is the point that you're trying to make. There's nothing we can do about gravity. Like when we're designing cars, we don't talk about gravity. You know what I mean? Because it's already there. But this is a bad analogy.
No, this is actually I'm going to give you some credit. I think it's an okay reality.
Yeah. Maybe. So I don't know how it relates, but it's like, yeah, we're talking about, even though like cars' efficiencies have a lot to do with gravity. Yeah, if we could change the gravity, our cars would go farther for longer, but we can't. So like, why are we even talking about it? But what you're saying is like, inflation is key to this, to the concept of salary.
It relates to Dave Ramsey. Okay. Dave Ramsey, I feel like, operates in this world and gives advice in this world in his head where the Federal Reserve doesn't exist. Meaning, then the value of your money is that the devaluation of your money through that
entity
and the creation of the fiat currency doesn't exist in his head. And here's why I'm like, are you brain dead? Because he's like, pay off all your debts first. Pay off your house. And it's like, wouldn't your capital actually be better leveraged if you got a good mortgage, it's a fixed rate, it's a low down payment, and you can save? Let's say instead of paying down on that principal, you can do the math, and it's provable in the math. I promise you that. I bought a second home for only 10% down. Not only am I paying down that principal, the appreciation is working. My capital is finally being appreciated instead of going towards that and paying off the debt. Your multiplier of what you're doing with your capital is much different. That's all I'm getting at, is like, this scenario, it's so important to understand that because then it can inform all of your decisions after that.
Yeah. I think there's
Had to get it
so many people that have a hard time with not being in debt. Like literally there's millions and millions of people. So it's not even about wealth creation. You know, like how
that's not even a thought. I understand.
So it's if we can't get you out of just borrowing and using credit cards and all this.
And that's why I use the mortgage. To be clear, that's why I use the mortgage. I'm 100% with if you're not properly using your credit card if you're not paying it off every month before the interest rate happens.
Yep. Very much.
Taking advantage of the points. Okay, what do we got next, Al?
We have our best friend, Nick, with Nick Reads.
Thank goodness. I'm so glad to hear from him.
Hello, best friends. I hope you all had a great week this week. A reading. Picasso was at a Paris market when an admirer approached and asked if he could do a quick sketch on a paper napkin for her. Picasso politely agreed, promptly created a drawing, and handed it back to her, but not before asking for 1,000,000 francs. The lady was shocked. How can you ask so much? It took you just 5 minutes to draw this. No, Picasso replied. It took me 40 years to draw this in 5 minutes. Friends, never sell yourself short. And don't muck with hornets' nests. Toodles!
I totally understand it. You know what one of the coolest sketches of his, Picasso?
Picasso what?
It's like 2 lines and it's a bowl.
And how long did it take him to get to that kind of perfection, right?
I thought it was so cool.
It reminds
I
me,
just
it's like
tried
the Nike
sketching-
swoop, right?
Yeah, I tried like sketching that, and everyone, I was like, mine's terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring down the team for A.R.E. Jeopardy.
Yes, sir.
Question numero uno. A new living room with a floor dimension of 10 by 20 feet will require how much glazing area? Is it A, 8? These are all square feet. B, 4. C, dos. D, 16. 8, 4, 2, or 16? What's the ratio? So it's going to be 200 square feet if you take 10 times 20. That's 200. Okay. If you want simpler math, divide that by 2, and then, which is 100. Now, what's your ratio? And then double it. 8 feet, 4 feet, 2 feet, or 16? Do-do-do. All right, hold them up. Time's out. Wait. Okay. 8 feet? 4 feet? It is 8% at 200 square feet. That is 16. So, did you guys?
Anybody got it right?
No one got it right, but the architects.
But the architects.
8%.
That's just across the board? Or?
That's for living space. Yep.
Mark, that shirt matches your eyes.
Wow. That mustache matches your personality. Question 2. Glazing that is less than 36 inches above the finished floor, that is at the bottom of a stair landing, shall be tempered if it is within how many inches of the stair landing? Is it A, 72, B, 50, C, 46, or D, 60? C? D, 60, not 46. Lance.
All right, number 3. What are the 2 types of glare that a lighting designer should be aware of? A, direct. B, reflective. C, indirect. D, counter direct. You got to pick 2. Tell me if you need to repeat. Of the whole question or just the...
Everything.
All right. What are the 2 types of glare that a lighting designer should be aware of? A, direct. B, reflective, C, indirect, D, counterdirect. You got A and C, B, C. The correct answer is A, B. What do we got for scores?
So it was direct.
And reflective.
Yep.
Yep.
Indirect, not a issue. Counter direct.
Is made up.
Nice.
Yeah. 1-0?
Yeah.
Okay. Sheriff. Yep. Sheriff McNutt is going to tell us where to go eat, I'm thinking. Reeves could tie it up. Number 4. Which of the following types of light outputs point all the light in the direction of the task? Which of the following types of light outputs point all the light in the direction of the task? Is it A, task? Is it B, direct? Is it C, focused? Is it D, straight? I'll give you one hint. There is only one that is the right answer. Is it A, task, B, direct, C, focused, D, straight? Come on, Reeves. The correct answer is B. All right.
What?
Sheriff McNutt wins 2-1, right?
Sheriff.
2-1.
Where are we going to eat? Hefes.
Al, you got anything?
Nope. I'm out.
All right. It was good to be back. If you like this episode, if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you like, subscribe, share it with your mom. We'll see you next week.